I'm Aiden McHale, and this is my final reflection of what happened in the semester of grade 10 social.
Sorry, my hair is a little messed up for today.
How does globalization impact identity?
Good question. Globalization exists in many ways. For example, marginalization, uh, the slave trade. We got countless other examples of globalization and even economic globalization that has impacted the identity of users. Such as if I were to go into the economic globalization, I would have to say that with corporations and the obesity rates going up, some people just lose control and it changes their entire lifestyle. And it impacts everyone around them as well as especially them, which is crazy.
What are the most valuable lessons we can learn from historical globalization?
I'd have to say, number one, solving a problem with violence never ends well with the human population as a whole. And it causes environmental problems for everybody in the world, such as what happens with most violent protests. There's violence all over the place, people getting hurt, killed, injured, good people and bad people. Uh, and this has been proven multiple times throughout history, which is one question. Most important lesson from what we have seen with violent protests would be if there's a chance to solve a problem with a non-violent solution, take that chance instead of causing another 100 problems after that, even if they don't come corresponding with each other. Number two is the marginalization of anyone leads to more violence, again, back to the violence, and more widespread hatred for almost everyone. For example, the cross-Atlantic slave trade causing a worldview of African American people treated as lesser than everyone else, and the marginalization of African Americans have caused a lot of stereotypes and everything to emerge out of that because they took the more violent action of, hey, let's go make these people our slaves. We need an easier life because we're better than them, is what the Europeans thought. And so what happened is that everyone wanted an easier life. So the important lesson that would have to be, and I know anyone has heard this hundreds of times, treat people how you want to be treated. I know it seems generic and probably heard it all the time, like from parents, family, friends of family. But when there's a problem with any person being treated harshly in violent ways, it always turns back on the people who has been causing the violence, unless of course they somehow get out of it, which has happened in history. And obviously, the person being treated harshly is being treated harshly. And when people don't treat other people how they would like to be treated, it seems generic, but it's happening all the time. People treat people with violence, and they get the same back. And it's just terrible. And so, treat people the way you want to be treated. And most importantly, you don't want violence to act on violence because that just leads to chaos, and chaos is not good. And so, if we were to treat every being on this planet equally,
What have been the most significant impacts of economic globalization?
mm, yes, I would have to say the taking over and excessive influence corporations of the world has on most governments and people. Did you know that obesity rates have been going up a lot recently? And yeah, the people are mostly to blame, but corporations such as, let's have an example, McDonald's and other fast food places have been a part to because they have all the advertising all over the place, as well as when you eat a burger or anything from any fast food place, it actually has a chemical reaction to the human mind, causing us to keep going to these places because it makes us happy. Whenever we go and get like a burger or fries, okay, I have encountered this phenomenon, and unlike most people, spotted the difference in my moods. I don't like the taste of McDonald's, yet I keep going. I find only the fries appealing. I have had better and cheaper burgers, yet I still go. But why? Honestly, I can't even explain it. Besides, I see McDonald's and other fast food places like McDonald's posters, signs, and ads almost everywhere, and it almost like a magnet attracts me to the locations, and I have no idea why. So I can safely say that with sketchy backgrounds of some and horrible cover-ups of many, I can I can say that most of the most significant impact of economic globalization would indefinitely be the overwhelming power corporations have over our like unnatural mindsets that they have implanted. Because if you were to go to a child and ask, "Hey, do you know what McDonald's is?" and they'll be, "Yeah, that stuff is great. I love going there because they have a place, which is appealing to the young, and it targets and directs certain audience members, and that is a huge and significant impact that economic globalization has just put on everybody, especially younglings." All right, next question.
In the light of the course, how should you respond to globalization?
Personally, I have no clue and just don't know if we as individuals are able to undo the course of globalization. Because if we try, and we have, there would be all sorts of consequences, such as what we saw with the Black Lives Matter protests and rallies, which are good. It's just too big of a problem. All this violence. But if and globalization, all the bad, yeah, it has good stuff. Like it has really good stuff, like giving job opportunities. But if we were to reverse all the bad stuff, I don't think we could, not as individuals. It's just too big of a problem. Unless the entire humankind comes together without any complaints or interruptions, then there would be a way to reverse the bad, unequal problems past generations have created through generations. But like I and many of my peers have mentioned, that is an extreme long shot.
All right, on to the COVID questions. In what way or ways has your appreciation for the quality of life we have as Canadians been impacted?
Yes, indeed. My view and appreciation for the Canadian lifestyle has changed tremendously throughout the entire semester of Social 10. And if I were to explain in what ways they changed, I would have to go into detail and say that talking about globalization, in economic globalization, and every form out there, or, through the movement of materials across the world, as well as the slavery footprint and overall footprint calculator, like those websites that we have done, that would definitely have impacted my view on appreciating the living state of most people in Canada. It's just great. It's huge. And the fact that we need almost like 4 Earths or 2 Earths just to support a Canadian lifestyle is absolutely insane to think about.
What have you learned about the role of technology in our lives?
Yes. I have learned that the role of technology in our lives has a tremendous and massive impact on not just ourselves, but the people around the world and people just around us in so many different ways of globalization. Such as if I were to take one of the simplest pieces of technology, a clock. Almost everyone has it in their house, whether it be a clock on its own device on a wall or a time telling piece or program on a device. Almost everyone has a piece. Almost everyone around the world has a form of time telling or a clock. And the journey to make a clock would have so many different processes that it would have to go through thousands, not thousands, but hundreds of people's hands and countless cents just to put it into the manufacturing process, which is so intricate. And if I were to count the distance that the pieces of the clock in total have actually traveled to combine into the time telling piece or clock, it would surpass the travel distance of those involved in making it, whether it be the millionaires or just the people in the sweatshops. Just to make a clock or a time telling piece that the average human takes a rough estimate of 50 glances at every day, consuming around 50 seconds to 1 minute of our everyday lives. So, yeah, as much as technology can unite us together and be wonderful, it also has the same amount of power to consume and divide us. So, yeah, the role technology has on our lives, not only time consumption, uh, distance traveled, resource consumption, and many, many stages to go through, has such a huge impact in the role that it plays in our lives. So, yes, I have learned a lot about the role technology has in our lives.
Have you gained any insights into our rights and freedoms?
Ooh, yeah. Yes. Very much yes. Because of what has been happening with COVID and the fact that everyone has been looking at the rights and freedoms during this time, Karen, and the excessive amount of good and bad types of protesting, and mostly violent and then non-violent, both of which get involved with violence either way, and uh, there has been all that has been throughout 2020. So yeah, everyone has at least investigated or gained new insights about their rights and freedom. But if I were talking about getting new insights in social class, then I'd have to say that touching up on all the topics that has been in 2020 had also led me to have a much better understanding of our rights and freedoms, and throughout the consistent bantering of the world's community over every single major and minor event in the single worst year ever, so far at least. And yes, so touching up on the topics of 2020 has been a good thing, but the events of 2020 has not.
Well, that concludes it for this interview. Thank you for coming along.
Mm, thank you for having me.
Thank you again.